Good morning, friends. I'm going to put my sunglasses on. I am headed to church this morning and just thought I would have a little chit chat with you guys on my way there. I have been having some anxiety this last week, which I think I've talked about this before. I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was 30 years old, and I managed it with counseling, and I did a year on antidepressants, and then was able to, through behavior modification, wean off of antidepressants with my psychiatrist's help. You need to do that in conjunction with your provider, of course. And mental health, those of us that have mental health stuff, we're really bad about taking our medication. So I was very compliant because I have an anxiety disorder that basically anxiety and depression are best friends. And I got the anxiety and I went into a pretty bad depression, where my mother-in-law had to come sit with me during the day with the boys, and just, it was a very interesting time in my life because my husband was traveling with work and he would be gone during the week, and I was having a lot of trouble functioning. So we don't want to repeat that. And every once in a while, I will start to kind of gear up on that, where some of my behavioral modification, like my behavior changes, I don't know how else to say it, they don't really work. And I've noticed the last month or two that I have been like more tearful than usual, and just sort of gearing up towards some anxiety stuff. So I started to kind of work on that, and I feel like my focus has been on working through that and talking to my supervisor about that. And we have an employee assistance program. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but if you do work, a lot of times jobs will provide an EAP program where you can get like several counseling visits for free. It's on your insurance and that sort of thing. So kind of working through all that stuff with my boss, because a big part of that, I think, is my job. And you have to have a certain amount of self-awareness so you don't completely burn out. And I think I've been talking to you guys a little bit about like the burnout signs and symptoms, but I haven't really been talking about the underlying anxiety disorder stuff. And through counseling, we trace that back through to like some real traumatic things that happened to me back when I was a teenager. So I've kind of worked through that, and I'm not going to go into a lot of that now, but suffice it to say, this is the second Saturday that I've had to just completely bail. I say completely bail. I still was doing like my house stuff that I have to do on Saturdays, but just not overstimulating myself. Like Friday night we went out, my husband and I went out for a date, and we went to a place called Studio Movie Grill, and we saw like the Terminator movie. And if you have any sort of anxiety disorder, like the number one thing my psychiatrist told me years ago was you need to avoid like news, horror movies. She didn't say action movies, but I don't know, like the Terminator, which I love that kind of action sci-fi stuff, like favorite type of movie ever. And I really enjoyed the movie, and Arnold Schwarzenegger looks great, So does, what's her name? Linda. Oh, I forgot her name. She looks great too. So it was a really good movie, but it was very loud. and sort of poked the bear a little bit, to the point where I came home feeling like really, really keyed up. And like, the end of the world. If you have an anxiety disorder, you understand. My husband often says that if you don't have any sort of mental health thing, it's very hard to understand. And, he, of course, working in the church, sees all kinds of mental health stuff, but he's never himself had any issues. And so, when I'm going through this, he's so sweet. Like, I don't know if you guys saw over on Instagram, he brought me flowers this week. And it's just, he's my stabilizing factor as I kind of work through it and figure out what I need to do. And so, some of the self-care things that I'm tempted to drop, but I don't drop, is like church. That's one of the first things that I really want to drop. I think I talked about this last week on my vlog, because there's so many people and I feel so like taxed right now with people. One of the things that sort of kicked this into gear is that I really enjoy my work, but then I had some family stuff happen on top of that, and it kind of put me over the hump, like over the edge of, just the whole pattern, which anxiety is basically, it's like looping into a worry that you can't loop out of. And it's not like normal worrying behaviors. It's like worrying to the point of having like signs and symptoms, like, feeling jittery and anxious. And it's very hard to break out of those panic attack type signs and symptoms unless you have good tools. And so I'm using my tools. Unfortunately, when I'm like this, I want to snack more, which I think probably snacking increases serotonin in my brain, and so I feel like snacking. And instead of snacking, I need to be out walking, but it's hard for me to get myself to go outside. So that's just kind of a reality. I don't know that I've talked a lot on here, but I think it's really important to destigmatize mental health stuff. And it's really hard to think of yourself as a really, it's really hard when you think of yourself as a very stable person to have like something like this come out of the blue. And then you kind of look back and you realize, well, I haven't really been taking care of myself this last year. You guys know that. How many messages have I gotten from you guys where you're like, Amy, take a break. Amy, get a grip. Amy, take care of yourself. I mean, it's constant, because you all probably see very clearly what I don't see, which is one of the benefits of being on YouTube, is you guys mirror back to me sort of, what I'm putting out there. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I'm really excited about, Weight Watchers doing something new, because I feel like I can kind of hook into that a little bit and work on, if I'm not working on my physical stuff, then I don't feel good, and that leads into the mental health stuff. I think it's all very interwoven and intertwined, along with my spirituality. So sometimes you just want to bail on all of it, you guys. And right now, that's what I feel like, is bailing. But then God has given me this beautiful day to get up and put my fall sweater on and leave the house, and just go try to think about some other people besides myself, which is really hard when I get into these patterns. But I want to encourage you all to participate in self-care and recognize the signs of when you're, circling the drains, as we used to say in the ER. Oh boy, those were bad days. Let's not go into that. But, you know, if you're circling the drain or just feeling really down, or like, you know, you're on the downside of things, like, you know, talking to someone about it. That's the first thing that I do is I tell my husband. Even back in the day, I remember it very clearly saying, something's not right. This is not me. And, you know, you are not your thoughts. So just realizing, you know, hey, I need some help. I need to reach out and talk to somebody and get the help that I need. There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of people that are going through the same thing, because a lot of times this can be very isolating and you feel very alone, like you're the only person. And there's help out there, you know. There's hotlines, there's all kinds of things that you can do. So I'm going to try to post there's a suicide crisis line. I'm going to post that below this video just for you guys, for your information. And then over on my Instagram, N is for Nurse 17, I'm going to try to post a bunch of hotline numbers for you guys, just in case you feel like you need to reach out and get some help. I have a little card that I carry around. So I will try to do that today. So if you feel like you do need some help, but you don't know, you know, who you can talk to or where to go, or, I mean, there's whole hotlines set up because so many people go through this stuff. There's so many people out there that resource themselves out because this is a common issue. And it doesn't feel good, and you often don't want to talk about it because you think it'll go away. And guess what? It just gets worse. Usually when you expose things to the light, they get better, you guys. The darkness is where things get worse. So bringing them into the light is usually the best thing to do for yourself. And that's what I'm doing right now, which is why I'm pulling into church right now, is to go pray and try to get outside of myself a little bit here and not be so into my funk. I hope you guys are doing great. Let me know what you're doing for self-care today, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.